So good morning and welcome to today's edition of How to Get the Most Out of Your AJC Coaching Career Experience. The reason I'm smiling a lot is because my special guest today, Nick Bottini, and I have just been chatting prior to the interview, and he just went, "Oh," and it had the most amazing energy. So I just thought I'd click record in the middle of that energy. So there we go. That's it. Good morning, Nick. How are you?
Morning. Yeah, good. I've got that energy now. You see, you
Yeah,
prompted it. It's infectious.
Oh, amazing. Thank you. So as we've done previously with this course, we're going to kick off with Nick reading his bio. Over to you.
I am the world's leading transformational coach, specializing in high-level musicians and other professionals working in the music industry. As a musician, I started performing at a young age, violin, saxophone, piano, and completed my undergraduate studies at Leeds University and the Franz Liszt Hochschule für Musik in Weimar, majoring in violin performance. After Leeds, I went on to gain a coveted place on the groundbreaking PGCE with Specialist Strings teaching program run by Manchester Metropolitan University with the Royal Northern College of Music in Manchester. An innovative and exceptional initial teacher training program training some of the brightest and best music educators in the UK. At the RNCM, I had the privilege of teaching and mentoring string players on the award-winning Junior Strings project. My postgraduate studies at the RNCM included advanced string pedagogy with Philippa Bunting, as well as rigorous teacher training in highly innovative, holistic music education methodologies, Dalcroze rhythmics, the Kodai method, and Alexander technique. I also had further violin tuition with Catherine Yates from the Halle. Today, I am also an accomplished freelance saxophonist and have studied privately with Martin Speake, Dave O'Higgins, Brandon Allen, and Melissa Aldana. After qualifying as a teacher, I went on to teach music and lead ensembles in London schools and was quickly promoted, becoming director of music while still in my 20s. I also taught and mentored a wide range of young musicians, including a number of exceptionally gifted individuals, child prodigies, competition winners, Oxbridge candidates, and future stars of the West End. I became increasingly fascinated by the world's most advanced and effective strategies for teaching expert skill acquisition to musicians. And so rather than further my career as a senior leader or an advanced skills teacher, I decided to study a coaching approach popularized by the worlds of business and elite sport. I have brought the same rigorous commitment to excellence from my musical training to my coaching career, and I have trained with, studied with, and been coached by many luminary figures from the worlds of psychology, therapy, and coaching, including Richard Bandler, John Laval, Kathleen Laval, Jamie Smart, Garrett Kramer, Dickin Bettinger, Keith Blevins, Kathy Casey, Dr. George Pransky, Linda Pransky, Jan Chipman, Chip Chipman, Steve Chandler, and Ankush Jain. I've also taken 3 separate year-long professional coaching certification programs with the Clarity Academy. I'm now an experienced and pioneering coaching professional working at the very top of the music industry. I coach jazz, pop, rock, classical, hip hop, and folk musicians, international rock stars, multi-platinum selling artists, high net worth individuals, award winners, masters and doctoral candidates, concert soloists, touring crew, producers, engineers, composers, lecturers, and people with many other diverse roles within the music industry. Sometimes I also mentor and supervise other professional coaches. In addition to music, education, and coaching, I'm also a gifted writer. I am the author of a #1 best-selling book, Just Play: The Simple Truth Behind Musical Excellence, which was published in 2018. The first book applying the 3 principles to the field of music. I'm also a contributor to the forthcoming Touring and Mental Health, the music industry manual, and my articles have also been featured in the Strad, Arco, and I'm also a mental health and music industry columnist for Aware Now magazine. Wow. You asked me to read my bio, and I was like, whoa, because I'd forgotten how much I'd written on that. It's been a while since I read that.
Yeah. That was exactly where I was. It's like, wow. And I mean, what's really cool for me is like I studied music at Manchester Uni and used to go to the Northern for lessons. So there's names. It's like, I'd forgotten that name. I know that person, you know, we're in a slightly different era, but you know, because I'm 10 years younger than you. But apart from that, that's amazing. I'm quite blown away actually, and also blown away by how blown away you are. Like, how powerful is that to see yourself and reflect? What's that like when you read that back to yourself?
I notice this with clients, and I definitely notice it in myself, but I can't see it so clearly. I think that there's greatness in all of us, and I sometimes can hesitate from allowing all of it in, because I can get the feeling that I'm not supposed to brag about stuff, and I'm not supposed to name drop. And yet, because I wrote that in an exercise in the school, and with Ankush, and I realized that every single thing in there is true about me, and it's very edifying. It's a nice reminder of who I am and the journey that I've been on, because I really see how there's only one of me on planet Earth. That's how it reminds me. There's only one of me on planet Earth, and there's only one of me that can. There's only one person like me that can do precisely what I'm here to do.
That's the best title. One of me.
You can have that for free.
That's how I got a feeling it's yours. But that's amazing, isn't it? Like, because part of, I suppose, going back to, like, for me, part of the motivation around doing these calls was to, you know, it's called How to Get the Most Out of, and that can sound like quite takey, but what I hear and what you've just said is you're seeing the amazingness of who you really are and everything that you've done and all the work, and as a musician too, I know the hours of practice. Like when you were talking about your violin stuff, I just thought, oh, he's high fits. Wow, that's amazing. So do you know what I mean? I've got a real personal experience and sensitivity for everything that goes into that. And I just think that's going to be so interesting for people to hear you talking about reminding yourself of the magnificence without that nagging doubt of, oh, am I bragging? You're just sharing you and what you've done. And the bragging bit would just be like a mind story afterwards, wouldn't it? Like,
yeah. It's just interpretation, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. You just literally read out stuff you've done with names. The whole idea of a name drop is again another mind fantasy of, well, maybe I shouldn't. And that's, you know, so I'm guessing a lot of that, let's call it confidence, if you like, to really like face up to your own brilliance. That's what I heard. A lot of that was nurtured in the school, would you say?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, that writing that bio was the first time I'd ever put it all down in a way that I don't know, like kind of owns all of the details in there, but also just kind of presents it in a way that really explains what the journey was for me.
Yeah.
Because, you know, and because it's really interesting for me as a business owner, as a coach, as a pioneer in my industry, because that's what I am. And it's interesting because like there can be in some maybe professional musicians, maybe just general public, some sort of questions or skepticism or cynicism around this word they hear, coaching. You know, they hear coaching, and because there's such a low bar for entry to that industry, to calling yourself a coach and just updating a LinkedIn profile or something saying I'm a coach that walks on water, or whatever they come up with, you know, all these kind of stuff. There can be skepticism, but the word coaching in different forms has been used in the music industry for a long time. You know, in part that term, you know, owes a lot to that industry. And so I think it's interesting for me because the tradition is very important to musicians. The tradition of teacher, student, master, student. You know, that and preserving the tradition of classical music so that it gets passed on, so it doesn't die out, or the tradition of jazz, or the tradition of the discipline. Like, so musicians really value tradition, and because the word coach is a relatively new word, it can be like, oh no, we learn through teaching, we don't learn through coaching. But what the epiphanies that I had along my journey, and I was on this quite extreme journey of I was just desperate to improve because I had an injury, and I wanted to explore every possible avenue available to me within education to improve my playing. So I went to the edge of what traditional teaching would give me, and I noticed that some teachers were more effective than others. But then I realized that there was this whole industry around changing beliefs, not just teaching skills. And so I went outside the music industry looking for answers to try and make me a better teacher. And now the way I see it is that actually teaching evolves, there's like a spectrum, and it evolves into coaching. There's like one end is like skills and hard skills, and the other end is like the more advanced the tuition, like the higher level the teacher, the more it becomes about belief and inspiration and self-identity change. So like you see someone like a Maxim Vengerov, the violinist, like probably the world's greatest violinist, doing a masterclass. It's his way of being in those masterclasses. He can play, but obviously exceptionally well, but it's his way of being that's infectious to the students and anybody watching. It's not about playing the violin, but the way that the industry tends to look at those is like, he's a really good violinist, we're learning his skills, and it's about his being actually. So I've just learned that actually I think the way that music education is going to go and the way the music industry is going to go is they're going to, because they're going to have to take the being side of being a musician, being an outstanding musician, being a self-actualized musician, being entrepreneurial, being a 21st century musician. They're going to have to take that more seriously, because so much of the stuff that used to be just about skills can be done by computers. There's so much music that can be automated, and AI, and there's all sorts of stuff which are pushing the focus on the people skills, but not just people skills, like a really advanced level of people skills, influence, enrollment, coaching skills, leadership skills. So that there are, and you're starting to get it. You're starting to get musicians who are seeing themselves as empowered. They're seeing themselves as changing the market rather than complaining about the way the market is, complaining about the way the music industry is. They're trying to change it. So that's the thing that's really got me excited and interested, and that's I ended up there kind of by accident, for a starting point of desperation, just trying to figure out and trying to explore all avenues of transforming myself as a musician, and this is where I ended up. So when I read that bio, it's like, wow, yeah, every step along that way it's been logical to me, but I can see how unique that perspective is. There's very few people that see it like me.
That's beautiful. I had an image then when you said that of like almost every, you talked about an injury and wanting to overcome that, and almost every step being a part of the healing process. Mm-hmm. So then the actualization, and the bio is like the actualization of this is who I am and who I've become, and it completes the circle. You used a great phrase almost in a throwaway way actually, and it kind of like shell-shocked me at the time, but you said, I'm a pioneer in my industry. So tell us more about that, because that's what I hear, but and I know the industry a little bit too, but for people who maybe don't, tell us about how you see that. You alluded to it a few times actually, about people who are not just in industries but changing them. But tell us about Nick, the pioneer in the music industry.
I looked, when I was a music teacher, I looked to coaching to change my life. It was a logical next step, because I'd been reading personal development books, and it was part of my world, because at that time I was a real seeker, right? So I was deeply immersed in coaching and experienced the transformational value of it, and it transformed my relationship with music and myself, and it looked absolutely obvious that this was like the ultimate form of education. It was like the most potent form of education. It wasn't about information, it was about transformation. And I use the word pioneer because after I'd started training as a coach and I was getting deeper into it, I actually started to look out into what other people were doing in music education, in the professional, among professional musicians, how the music industry is working. And it was like, it looked to me like a no man's land of very traditional approaches that were nothing to do with coaching, really. There's very little presence of what I called coaching. Now that they used the word coaching, but they meant high-level teaching. Right. And so that was curious to me, because I had also done some training, like I mentioned, I think in the bio with Garrett Kramer, who works in the field of sport. And there, when I looked to that industry, I saw an industry that has embraced what I'm calling coaching, which is the transformational mindset education, I guess. It's that part that's much more embraced in the world of professional, elite sport. Yeah. And it's also much more deeply embraced in the area of business. So business has become popular. Coaching seminars, one-to-one coaching, executive coaching, that kind of thing is much more popular in business. The value of it's understood. The value of it's more understood in the world of sport. Comparatively, the music industry is lagging behind, I see. Now many people in the industry will think it works fine. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Well, it does work. It has passed on traditions. And there are these teachers that we hail as geniuses, who look like they're the outliers, who are the ones who have this mysterious ability to inspire, this mysterious ability to sort of transform people in their presence. And we kind of hail them as geniuses, and we think it's something about who they are. And it's not something that we can achieve. And I know full well, as someone who first learned to be a teacher and then transitioned from being a teacher into being a coach, those skills are learnable. There's certain things they're doing. There's certain kinds of thinking that they are changing in the student or the client that is learnable. And so when I say the word pioneer, I mean that I can see where music education is going, where it needs to go to match up to the demands of the 21st century reality and what musicians need. Right? There's a mental health crisis everywhere, but particularly in the music industry, that's been quite well documented. There's unstable conditions. There's people feel concerned about technology, about diversity and inclusion. All sorts of things are perceived as being really challenging to musicians, and coaching provides a way to navigate that. It looks fundamental to me. So in terms of me pioneering, I'm just doing that. I'm just quietly, or not so quietly, kind of coaching high-level musicians, and in different genres, in different countries. I'm just coaching these high performers, coaching these music entrepreneurs, and building a community of people who are starting to see the value of what coaching can do for the music industry. And what I think it can do is it makes the music industry mentally healthier. It makes the music industry more collaborative. It makes the music industry kinder. It turns the music industry into an industry of leaders rather than of followers.
I love that.
Because historically, well, certainly musicians, a lot of the time have been employees. They haven't been business owners, because the technology hasn't existed, right? They haven't been able to get on a laptop and make an Instagram profile or do a YouTube video or use Facebook ads or something, or be able to kind of get their message out there beyond live performance. So they've been limited to sort of being employed to do a performance somewhere, or they've been limited to being employed to teach someone. But now you get the technology has meant that actually musicians can have a platform to really be leaders. But because historically the tradition has trained them to be employees and to be trained in skills of playing. There's not a tradition of teaching musicians leadership skills. When they say the word leadership, they're talking about leading an ensemble, and that's really down to it's again comes back to art and artistry. It's not really about the interpersonal skills. Now, it's not to say that there aren't musicians who have highly developed interpersonal skills, but it's not something that most of them will really study in depth. Like, because if you go to like a CEO or I guess like sports psychology, like the in the world of sport and business, the study of mindset, the study of the interpersonal skills, I think is taken more seriously. And it's starting to creep in. It's starting to creep in more in music education of younger people. But there's this whole generation that just had very little leadership training, very little emotional skills training, and there's this huge skills gap because now it's become so globalized and so competitive. They really need those skills, but they've got this value system that says it's all about the art.
Love that.
So
I was just thinking in that last section you were saying there's something I want to circle back to. Often section leaders are just like technically the most accomplished players, or the people who've been doing it for a long time. Actually, I think that's still really prevalent in business and in education. I still think there's a that's a whole other conversation, a skill gap in a lot of what you're talking about. Even though education believe they have a coaching culture, I don't think they have the kind of coaching culture that you and I would talk about. It's quite formulaic, and anyway, that's another thing. There's something you said that I think is just really interesting to mention, just going back to thinking about the school. You talked about kindness, collaboration, and then becoming a leader. And my sense from all the conversations I'm having is that's very much the essence of the school, and then the essence of what you guys, the grads of 2022, if you like, created together. That's who you became. You were that kindness, you were collaborative, and you are appearing as leaders and change makers in your own right. Does that map to how it was for you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
because I think before the program, I think I knew what was possible, but I think it didn't feel very normal for me to be a successful coach. I didn't feel like I had a peer group where success as a coach was normal. It felt like a fabled kind of promised land that the internet was telling me was possible, but I hadn't really experienced. But yet being in the room with that caliber of coach, or the caliber of coach that is ambitious, is as ambitious as I am, it really normalized it. And so it was very easy to be kind and collaborative because there were people who were on a very similar mission.
That's really interesting what you're saying about some of how coaching is marketed, because I think often the courses do market in terms of you can achieve, but I often get the sense there's an undercurrent that they'd rather you didn't as well. There's a need for that like hierarchy of, well, you could try and get here, whereas what I see with what you're pointing to, and particularly how you talked about being and skills, is that all of us have access to being. We're all being. That's no one's being more than someone else. Being is being, and it's done. And then there's just skills, stuff you can learn. And we tend to learn better, in my opinion, in a kind, collaborative, well-led, coaching supported environment. That's so cool. Wow, that's brilliant.
Tell you something else that's springing to mind, actually. Like I think I realized also, I think what a transition that happened was, I think I was in a place where I was trying to get all the clients. It's like my mission was get the clients because I need them, right? And then at a certain point, and I'd heard Steve Chandler say this somewhere at some point, but I had this realization, like there's 7 billion or 8 billion people on the planet. I can't coach them all. I couldn't even coach a tiny fraction of them. There are amazing other coaches in this group, and they will be better for some of the, it's just the numbers of the matter. And I care about this profession being lifted to a status where it's taken seriously, because I see it as a noble profession on a par with being a master teacher, being a a doctor, a solicitor. It's a professional pursuit, and there are people like the ones in the school who are committed to being professional about it, to doing it to a high standard. So it doesn't make sense anymore to me to hoard or try and like prevent it. That competition doesn't make any sense, because there's just so many potential clients for everybody who wants some support,
Yeah, that's amazing. Brilliant. Nick, people are going to want to reach out to you. How do they do that? What's the best way of getting in touch?
Just by email. My email's nick@nickbottini.com.
Yeah.
So Nick Bottini, all one word.
Brilliant. Thank you. And you're going to finish the conversation today by reading us your document.
I had memorized it, and then I've recently tweaked it a little bit. So I'm going to let the team down by having to read it. But I forgive myself for that, so it's fine.
Awesome.
I am an exquisite work of art. I am a fierce stand for purity and truth. I am complete immersive awareness of the now. I am intimate with the perfection of life. I am that my intuition is a mandate from God. I am that my body is God's sacred instrument. I am an athlete. I am a yogi. I am a master musician. I am that I love and accept myself with no parts left out. I am that I love my beautiful, strong, wise body. I'm whole and complete, no matter where I go. I am a powerful example of masculinity. I am that I love sex, and I am total sexual freedom. I am brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous. I am unconditional love and compassion for all beings, especially myself and my family. I am that I love sharing my own learning freely and openly. I am that I love exposing my full being as a divine gift to the world. I am the creator of infinite possibility. I am a bold experimenter. I am funny and fun and infinitely playful. I am event, action, energy. I am an uncommonly conscientious learner. I am the creator, refiner, and follower of highly effective systems. I am that I take full responsibility for the outcomes in my life. I am the embodiment of health, wealth, financial freedom, and abundance. I am worthy of the finer things in life. I am a commanding, charismatic presence no matter where I go. I am that there is no one above me and no one beneath me. I am that I find beauty and joy in the small things. I am at total peace, especially as a musician. I am a man for others, and I am a man of my word. This is who I am. This is who I create myself to be. And my parents named me Nick Bottini.